Why is this not a great opening? Well, because I'm playing 900 and I'm worse after 12 moves, you know? All right, let's jump in. It's 15 minutes, 10-second increment. That's what we're doing. I'm, what, 7:25 right now. I hope to explain things in a way that helps you guys out a little bit. Let's first of all see what color we get. Exchange, sack, enjoyer. All right, D4, what should we play? Give me some ideas. These are rated games, yes. I'm on a different account. I do have a much lower rating. All right, I'm gonna play knight f6. We'll see what gets played next. But the point of it is, I hope with the longer games, I'm able to explain things, cover all my thoughts, and hopefully give you guys an idea how to play a variety of different openings. And you get to see them against players your rating, lower than your rating, higher than your rating. All right, I'll play e6. This might turn into an IMZO, which is a great opening, but as I was about to say, knight f3 tends to be a little bit more common. I'm gonna play the Benoni. I'm playing the Benoni. c5, and we're really playing I would say quite a main line of the Benoni. It doesn't have a great reputation this opening for black. I think it is pretty good, especially in blitz, but the longer the time control gets, the worse this opening tends to perform. So the point of it is you challenge the center in a way that if they let you take, you will, but everybody usually pushes, and black dreams of playing a6, b5, wants to use the e-file, and basically gets this insanely strong bishop, but forfeits space and etc. in the middle of the board. Let's go bishop here. I can play a6, but I think I'll hold on to it for the moment. I'm gonna castle. Thank you, Johnny Biscuits. Yeah, this bishop is the best piece in this opening, so you, for example, the prospect of like a knight for a bishop trade or playing the move bishop takes c3, almost never want to do. It's, yeah, I would basically just say never to make it easier to understand. Your bishop is way too valuable to be doing that. So yeah, we've fianchettoed our bishop. We're definitely going to castle. It's important to understand where to put these pieces. If white does not play h3, then sometimes you can go bishop g4, but usually you'll find that this bishop is kind of a pain for you to develop and deal with this bishop, because you can't move it here, here. If they play h3, you wouldn't be able to move it there, and bishop d7 is exactly where you want to put your knight. Sometimes you can go knight a6, c7, but for the most part, you always want to put your knight on d7. And already my opponent has gone knight f3, knight d2, which tells me I think they know a thing or two about this opening. Color me impressed already. So because I'm aware the knight wants to come to c4, first of all, when you play a6, if you ever get to play b5 after, you're laughing. But they will almost always play a4. Always. Right? Because they don't want you to just play b5 for free. So a6, a4 is kind of an immediate reaction. And so black spends a lot of time trying to push the b pawn forward. But it's not that easy because there's many, many pieces that control b5. So you have some work to do there. So here I am thinking, how do we want to get developed? Rook e8 is almost always where you want the rook. This knight almost always on d7. a6, going for b5. But I think we might adjust. Bishop e2, knight d2 setup. I like a6, but I am wondering about knight a6, knight c7 here as an option. I think we'll keep it simple. We'll play a6, which is like you always want to do this move in this opening. I will bring a rook here, mainly to just attack the pawn, because white's got it defended twice. And simply by doing this, I tied the pieces down, which is a nice feeling. You know, if he wanted to play that, he can't anymore. Yeah, a4, b6 is very slow, right? b6, it's like, how do I threaten b5? Bishop d7, it never does it, right? If this rook's not defended, b5 is never a move. Ever. So the only way to threaten b5 is like knight d7, rook b8. Getting closer. But keep in mind, it's not just, you know, roses and butterflies for white. He can't really develop this bishop without moving the knight. And right now the knight is stuck guarding the e-pawn. And rule of thumb, sometimes you can do it, but rule of thumb, you never want this bishop on b7. It doesn't fare well there. So we'll play knight here. Again, there's no squares for the bishop to develop. So we'll play this, rook b8 probably, and knight e5. But again, e4 is currently attacked right now, so he's gonna have to come up with some moves. It's a good feeling normally, yeah, to play bishop out and trade it for something. But that doesn't solve all your problems. It's just that, yeah, when you're left with this bishop, it usually stays on c8 for potentially a large part of the game. Okay, I mean, like, this guy's playing extremely well. Also, nice maneuvers, I would say. Rook b8's nice move to at least have the idea of b5. It's not going to be possible just yet, but it's there. So I think I probably want to start with it. Rook b8. Again, I can't play b5, but I'm close to being able to play it. And what would be actually kind of useful for me is potentially trading a pair of knights. So like, even knight there, knight e5 takes. Even though I lose time here, just having the extra space is nice. If this knight's gone, then, you know, I have another knight that can reroute. And this bishop will always be one of the most powerful pieces on the board. Tapir knight, that's a great way to put it, yep. Trading pieces definitely helps black, but that's a general rule as well as a rule here. If you have less space, then you're more cramped and you'll benefit from trades more, definitely. But I would say that the way my opponent is playing is maybe one reason why this opening has the reputation that it does. Like, why is this not a great opening? Well, because I'm playing a 900 and I'm worse after 12 moves, you know? I'm still impressed that this 900 knows the opening well enough to make a retreating knight move. Like, he moved the same piece twice in the opening. Knight d2, which is actually kind of clever to not allow bishop g4, so I'm definitely impressed. But at the same time, the Benoni doesn't have a great reputation, so it's understandable. Where does the queen have to go? Here. It doesn't usually go anywhere except these two squares, honestly. Queen a5 is just silly. Queen b6 is silly, and it blocks the b pawn. And where else can it go? Like, you'd never ever want to put it on d7. So it'll either stay here or develop to these squares. And the main reason we'd want to move it is to support our d6 pawn. But I'm also curious to start seeing what ideas my opponent has as well. Like, what can I expect from them? He is having to think. It's good to see. I like to see people spending their time, especially at this rating. Knight c4, I mean, it's a good looking move. Definitely. Even though b5 looks tempting, of course, we can't do it right now. So we do need to defend. It's either those queen moves or knight e5. Those are the only things to consider, I think. rather advanced, but if knight e5, knight a3, surprisingly, is an okay move. Because the knight actually looks a bit silly on e5, and if you slowly kick it out, it would just have to return. And that's how you avoid trading pieces. So, crazy as it looks, knight a3 stops b5, and adheres to the rule that you don't really want to trade pieces with black. Which is kind of weird. Same thing with knight b6. If I go knight b6, I imagine knight a3 is probably a great move. Knight b6 kind of blocks my b pawn, and the b6 knight is just about to get hit by the a pawn. So it doesn't make a lot of sense either. So queen c7, queen e7, or knight e5 are pretty much the only moves. If I go queen e7 or queen c7, then I have to reckon with bishop f4, right? A very simple move. And I don't love bishop f4 because then d6 is hit. How do I deal with it? It's not very clear. So after this move, I feel a little bit compelled to play the move knight e5 and would happily trade. What do you never ever want to do? Take like that. Never. In the Benoni, it's like you must have the pawns like that. If you ever have to play this, it's almost always a huge concession and a big mistake. So black always wants to take with a piece on e5, and that pretty much never changes. But we'll see what he'll do in order to handle this. Let's say bishop to f4, then we could take, maybe even follow up with knight h5, or move our queen and then go knight d7, knight e5. But a trade of knights would, I think, be nice for us. I think this is an elite move, but it's such a weird opening for white because, I mean, you think about what he's done. Knight f3, knight d2, knight c4, and maybe again, or even this. Like, it's many moves by just one piece. I mean, like, this is the strongest 900 I've ever seen in my life. Like, to play two backwards knight moves and put it on the rim and somehow conceptualize that this is like a strong move is like this is extremely advanced. Knight a3, well, I mean, it stops b5 which is very strong. As I said, I mean, there's no b5, and as I was saying, it does not trade pieces. Not trading pieces is the most annoying thing for black's position. If I play bishop d7, there's a situation where f4 just traps my knight. So, I think knight a3 is good. It's causing me to maybe think about h6, g5. Put the knight here, and then, you know, start to play on the dark squares there. Control these dark squares. But let's have a think here. If h6, then f4, knight g4, h3. I don't have e3 available, so h6 is kind of whatever. By the way, it's not always a bad thing when white plays f4 because, you know, you also get some benefits as well. Like the bishop can't go there anymore, and the king is a little bit exposed, so it's not all bad. I think I'll just move the queen. We could go queen e7, but I'm thinking more like queen c7. Notice that bishop g4 doesn't really trade pieces because it could always be met with something like f3. So I'm definitely thinking about this. Maybe h3 would be the next move. Yeah, let's just move the queen. Wants to be on this square anyway, probably, so watch over that. Another thing you probably never want to do as black in the Benko is play a move like knight f8. Knight f8 just never goes to any useful square for you, so I would say it's almost always wrong. if I can move this knight and play f5, that's another idea in this opening that we could make use of, f5, but tough. The knight a3 is a monster move. I was already very impressed by the move knight d2 by white. Very impressed. But the move knight a3, that's 2 backwards knight moves and moving the same piece multiple times before moving other pieces is kind of impressive. f3, so yeah, just going very slow here is my opponent. We're thinking about knight to h5 here, which has just become available. If f4, then knight g4, and then we might be coming in with bishop d4, which could work out nicely for us. And if he doesn't play f4, then I think I'm getting close to trying that f5 move. Probably can't quite do it, but it's getting close. One thing about the Benoni, which is almost always true, is that if things get messy or tactical, you're kind of interested in that. Structurally, your position is a little bit worse, but as soon as things get messy, you're kind of interested again. h5 might be another idea, to play h4 and knight h5, or to play knight h7 and f5. So I'm definitely thinking of that, but h5, h3, knight h7, f4 kind of hurts. Basically h3 cuts that square and then f4 happens. So I'm thinking about knight h5 here. Seems to be the move that I like the most. And then if f4, knight g4. There is takes there, but I've got a bishop d4 move that I think I'd be happy to throw in. Let's try it. There's also it wouldn't be here, but there is a situation where white takes here and black could use the g file. Here I would say white, it's always worth it if he's able to do that, but it's definitely a weird opening to explain because you have a bad structure, you don't have the center, you kind of got this dream long term of b5, which is not easy to realize. So the problem is that I haven't been playing this move because h3 f4 will trap my knight because I don't have a retreat square. So I think I'm looking at f5 next as an idea, cursory idea. The knight drops to f7 then, very nicely actually. The only problem with f5 would be f4. Knight there. I don't see him stopping me from playing bishop d4 because his knights don't have any of the useful squares and his bishop can't go there. So if he takes, then I would give bishop d4 check and then take back. And I'll have the 2 bishops there. It'll be a very messy position. Could work out. I never recommend the Benoni, no. Especially not when you're starting out. It's an opening I think you have to have a very good understanding to play with black successfully. Yeah, so he plays here. I mean, going back is just silly, so I'm gonna play here, I guess. Knight here takes. There is f5. Bishop d4 check, but that starts to get a little bit messy. And our queen maybe pops over, so I think we're interested in it. And again, if h3, bishop d4, king h1, knight g3 is mate, so at least we have a few ideas in the position. Like, the one thing I'll say is, while this move is quite annoying, I have no b5, I can't even dream of these moves. It does leave him, you know, if that knight's on f3, there's no bishop d4 that really bothers people, so. Of course, we're ready to take back. But, like, again, for my opponent, playing the move f3, and then seeing a move, and then playing the move f4, like, my opponent's just making a lot of mature decisions here. Moving the knight, like, 50 billion times in the opening is impressive, so. Knight c4, interesting, so he's moved the knight back, and I'm getting the feeling after bishop d4, well, I've been getting this feeling all game, but it's no surprise that I'm getting it now. Bishop d4, king there, knight f2, takes, bishop takes h5, and my bishop's hanging. So it seems like things do work out nicely for him there. What I'm thinking, though, is I want to get this move in, check, and then I want to slide my queen over to h4. That feels like we're starting to put some actual threats on the board. So I think I'm going to go for that. I'm going to start by getting this check in, though. I think here, bishop takes, and then I imagine, like, bishop e3 or something is the move. And it does kind of hold together there, but I think it's quite messy. And like I said, messy is usually good. I think my opponent will be able to maybe sacrifice something and make it work, but obviously now we look at the position and it's like, oh, I wish I played queen e7, not queen c7, of course, but the game wouldn't work out. Yeah, it wouldn't play out this way, so senseless to think about things like that. So check. He's taking a very long time to make a pretty much forced move. But something tells me he's a guy that takes a long time for every single move. His last couple moves, I think he spent 51 seconds, 47, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 43 seconds, 48 seconds. It's like, it's significant. Well, let's go here. I mean, this is pretty much all I can ask for. But I guess that's an idea. I'll probably still follow up with queen h4. And of course, this pawn is a goner in a lot of lines. So it's a very all-in approach. I also had b5 to think about there. Maybe b5 was tempting. So yeah, moves like knight takes h2, queen h4, knight g3. It's like we want them to work. I don't think it's gonna be that easy. Bishop takes knight, we'll take back. It's quite possible that we just get hit with like the accuracy bomb here. And white finds a way to defend this. But I would say for the most part that, you know, we're creating decently scary looking moves. They may not work against this this beast, but white defending things properly here in any kind of chess game it's always going to be a challenge. Which pretty much sums up the Benoni. It's not necessarily hope chess, but it's like you're usually worse if people can defend against your kind of aggressive play. G3 comes to mind to me. Because like it stops that. This move also maybe sets us up to try something like f5. What was wrong with knight f2? Yeah, just knight f2 takes, and then bishop takes knight, and then if I've got to take back because I just lost a piece, but the queen's also hitting my bishop, so it would be not really in my favor. Let's not forget, right? Bishop takes c3 and queen e4 is an idea, definitely. I know it's a weird one, but it does exist. So of course, I'm just gonna make this move quickly because it's a recapture. We know we have to do it. This bishop is still low on squares, but for the moment, you can't go h3. Queen h4, knight g3 is checkmate, but as you can imagine, I don't think we're just gonna waltz in here and deliver mate so easily. It's massive thanks from my opponent. I wonder what he's going to play defensively here, because now I'm pretty close to taking and then just taking on e4. Yeah, I'll lose d6, but we've won the e-pawn, we lose the d-pawn, and pieces have been traded, queens are off. Like, position I think is actually improving there. g3. So this is kind of what I was saying, that even though this is a crazy concept, I think bishop takes knight is at least something we can consider here, because our pieces all of a sudden get involved. So it's a good sign for us. I would say so far this is like ideal Benoni, because yeah, things are all over the place, but we have a safe square for our bishop. Both bishops are kind of in good spots. White hasn't been able to develop. We have b5 in the position, so I'm looking at b5 as a very strong idea. And maybe when this knight moves, to take and go there. The only thing is knight d2 stops that. Now the other thing is bishop f3 is like almost a mate, in case we're ever able to make that work. So just something to keep in mind and good to notice. On that note, f5, if it's taken, there might be something like, you know, bishop f3 or queen e1 because of those ideas. So f5 looks like a strong idea. Knight f6 looks like a strong idea. b5 looks like a strong idea, and takes on c3 and takes on e4 looks strong. So I'm really gonna take a moment here because a lot looks good, if I'm being honest. So if we do this and the knight goes somewhere like that, then we take, and I think should be very good. So there is this move. I'm not convinced by it. Take here. Queen takes is silly, so pawn takes. Everybody takes, knight takes d6, rook e2. And I mean, I think black is black's doing stuff there. Pretty happy with that. Rook on e2 is so strong. Takes b5. Then knight d2, and that covers e4. So that's what's annoying. e5 takes knight a5. b5 really feels like the move, I'll tell you that. But after knight a5, I'm still struggling to make it work here. Because after knight a5, if bishop c3, crazy enough, he might be able to throw in knight c6 there. Which, like, should never happen. Well, I'm gonna make a decision pretty shortly. But I'm kind of in between ideas. b5 I'd love to play first, but I don't think it works as well as I'd like to. Takes knight a5. Bishop c3 would be fantastic, and it would be winning if this was played. But knight c6 is the killer move in that variation. And queen e4, everybody takes, and my rook hangs. And it's like, somehow that doesn't work. So I think I'm going to keep it simple and go here. Oh, queen takes is not what I was expecting. Maybe it should be what I was expecting. I mean, I thought pawn takes for sure. So now we're going to take this check. Only one move here worth playing. And of course, we're already just winning a bunch of pawns, but also king g1, bishop h3, rook f2, queen e1 will be checkmate. So I think we go here. And if queen there, oh yeah, okay. It's amazing. I think the 900 in him suddenly woke up these past couple moves. It was probably like 20, almost 20, I would say quality moves from him. And then he just, you know, imploded and played some absolutely insane moves from my perspective. So what happened in this game? Let's look. It was tough to keep up with him. I mean, you just played really well. But yeah, Benoni, not the best reputation. But as you can see, everything is book, right? And for it to be like all book, and then the eval is like almost +1, right? It's close to +1. That's just the Benoni for you. That's just how it works. Still in book, right? Okay, so we did rook b8. Not the best. Not the best, but it's a very, very typical move in the opening. Getting ready to play b5. And you'll see what happens. Knight c4, knight e5. I mean, knight a3 to me is an elite move. I think better than knight takes e5 personally, because it doesn't trade pieces. So knight a3 is just tough to meet, honestly. Because, for example, you can see one of the top moves the engine recommends here is knight h5. And this is kind of what I was saying, that sometimes you can actually use the g file and take these double pawns. It's such an insane opening to try to explain this Benoni, because, like, look at the ideas we're talking about here, right? Knight h5, like, yeah, tough to explain. We went queen c7. I was saying h3 f4 seemed normal. White played f3, which I didn't love from him. And this is typical Benoni. This is exactly how the game should go. So knight h5 I think is a great move objectively, because f4 gets into frisky territory, and this is where the Benoni shines. Counterplay, overextending, white plays this, and all of a sudden e4 is weak, bishop's coming in. And yeah, white can play g4, the top engine move, but that's also like a very weakening move too. And yes, I'll take a step back and we'll continue. So as you can see here, there's only one move that really makes things work. which is f5. But like playing f3, f4, and f5 is not the way that you play this opening, like plain and simple. So this is already, I think, quite a big success for the opening. So check, king h1, queen e7. I was thinking g3 here, but my opponent decided to take first, which I think didn't help matters. Takes, and now we were dominating because we have e4 hanging. And g3, I really knew here that there were better moves available than what we did, but I thought we'd play it simple. I saw a small advantage there. One thing though that I'm curious is what the engine thought of this, because I was a little concerned by this. Bishop d4 back. I think it's because of bishop e2 though. Oh wow, yeah. Had to find some good moves here. Knight c6, rook e1. Solid. But as soon as the game starts trending in a tactical, messy direction, then you've done your job very, very well as a Benoni player. If it's more positional, like longer game, like you're probably in trouble. But this is something I was mentioning. Remember I said, hey, don't forget, there's some checkmate ideas with bishop f3. I mentioned that earlier, and we see here how important it is. So this is one of those things where I knew that b5 was good. I knew that knight a5 was annoying. And it's like, if I had more time or I really wanted to make it work, I know for a fact that the engine would approve of that, but I couldn't really work it out. So I just decided to take here because I knew that we would be able to make this work. Like this would be an advantage. So he takes here, which is a big mistake. He should play b takes c3, and this move just, you know, imploded, right? Everything is just game over from this point, and he goes here, which, yeah, blunders the rook, but it blunders mate in one as well. So he really knew his theory. And what happened is things just got messy in a Benoni. That's exactly what happens. Was it always engine approved? Not really. But I think even it'd be tough to find a Benoni game from Black's perspective that was like fully engine approved, because it's not really an opening that the engine agrees on at all. Like in the first place. It's kind of like the King's Indian, you know? King's Indian defense for Black. It's the type of opening where you play the opening properly, all theory, and then the engine's like, yeah, you're much worse. +1. It's like, oops. But anyway, this was a very tense game, and you can hopefully you guys can see the difference. Why I don't recommend this opening to like beginners, that's for sure. You know, you can see the difference. Me playing 900 in, you know, other openings versus the Benoni. Immediately, like, I had to fight in order to claim an advantage in this game. Yes, I ended up doing it in like 20 moves. It maybe looked effortless at the end, but it was very close, and he rattled off a bunch of good theory moves. Knight a3 was like blowing my mind. I was like, wow, that's impressive. So it's kind of a fun opening, but it's not the type of opening you want to start with. I think you have to have a good understanding of chess before you can whip out the Benoni, because it breaks a lot of principles and rules, and I don't think it's very intuitive.